Got your timeline cleanse for you right here. Because I know you've probably been spending the last couple of years wondering what happened to Andy Carroll. You know, Andy Carroll, the big English striker, has got 9 caps for England, used to play for Liverpool back in the day. Giant man with a man bun. Made the man bun cool again for a little bit before Gareth Bale co-opted it for his golf tournaments. That Andy Carroll. He basically puttered around a couple top clubs while getting injured, constantly, having people spark constant debates about whether he was actually good, whether he was actually ever going to mount a comeback, all the good usual sorts of debates. And then he ended up down in the English Championship where he scratched out a few more years of his career. Now he's 35 years old. Okay, this guy, right? Big, broad chin, big, meaty lad up top, the sort of guy that would make Sean Dyche faint in a bar when he was trying to pick him up ordering his 8th Pilsner or something. Not a Pilsner, something good. Maybe like a Guinness or like some other sort of dark beer that looks like it's going to, try and beat you up on its way down into your into your stomach and everything. One of those types of beers. Anyways, Andy Carroll spent last year in the French second division. He jumped from Reading and West Brom and Reading again, right? He jumped from those 2 clubs to Amiens, right? He went second division of England to second division of France. And you figured this was just one last ride to collect a pretty decent paycheck before maybe he ended up in Saudi Arabia. If you're being generous, the UAE, maybe going for a nice Japanese tour, right? Those seem to be a little more in vogue. Those clubs are picking up a little bit more cash, throwing them around. And what says I'm using soccer to travel the world more than going to play in Japan? That sounds awesome. Good for you. That is that time in Andy Carroll's career. But no, Andy Carroll has decided to do something fucking awesome instead. Really, he's decided to do something awesome. He's decided to do something that if I was a professional footballer, I would probably decide to do. You don't really get to see a lot of situations like that and go, yeah, I'd probably do that too when you're looking at professional footballers. But in this particular situation, that's how I'm looking at this. Andy Carroll did something that every person that watches football goes, well, why don't they just go do this? Andy Carroll moved to Bordeaux. Now, you might not know what's going on with Bordeaux, but this club got liquidated, right? Like, it is one of the big clubs in France, but it got financially destroyed. Good riddance. See you later. It had to reform, reconstitute, whatever, bounce back in the 4th division of France. And they now have 35-year-old Andy Carroll up top. I'll just take an aside here and say thank you, Andy. Seriously, thank you. My faith in footballers' ability to make decisions that were not financially motivated, it was waning. There seemed to be fewer and fewer players that were doing it, and then there are. And look, there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with making as much money as you can possibly make. If you want to turn being a player, being a footballer, into a business, that's perfectly fine. There are obviously some moral qualms depending on where you decide to do that, but like if you set out training, if you try and hold out for a new contract, maximize your value. You've earned the right to do that because you're the person that's able to kick the ball better than me, right? But I am somebody that wants to live in a fanciful world. I'm somebody that wants to live in a world where knights are slaying dragons, that sort of thing is happening. And in that world, footballers play for the love of the game. Right? It's foolish. A good number of them don't, really. I can't blame them. They're forced to play the game so much. Right? If you believe the tropes, they were forced to play the game by their parents and they just happen to be good. And then on from there, right? That kind of overbearing parenting that can produce a lot of the great footballers that exist. Right? The Beckham documentary being the latest, greatest example. Right, but the idea has always permeated my mind and probably a lot of yours that I just want footballers that are playing for the love of the game, that love the club, that want that club to win as much as I want that club to win. And Andy Carroll going to Bordeaux is everything that's right with that train of thought. Right, Andy Carroll going to Bordeaux, he's making $3.5K a week. Okay, Andy Carroll is making $3.5K. This dude, I guarantee you, just based off of brand recognizability, could have gotten 50, 100K a week playing in the Middle East, right? So they could stick him on some posters and get the PR of that transfer. And we could have been, oh, wow, Andy Carroll's washed. I didn't know he was still around. Oh, he's gone over there. That's amazing. No, he just chose to go to Bordeaux. They didn't have the money to offer him. They didn't have really anything to offer him other than the fact that, hey, it's Bordeaux, right? And Andy Carroll gave an interview, which is summarized here. It's summarized here, like they pulled the quotes from RMC and put them on Reddit. You started your Bordeaux story with a double in front of 10,000 supporters in the 4th Division. How did you experience that? Because that's true. Andy Carroll, if you didn't notice yet, looking at this page, has 1 appearance and 2 goals. Because it's a 35-year-old fit Andy Carroll going up against guys in the 4th Division of France. Like, fucking, of course. Right? This is what it looks like when you put players of that caliber up against semi-pros. Okay? But he said, honestly, it was fantastic. The fans were wonderful. We were down 2-0 in the first half, and they pushed. I loved scoring those 2 goals, especially for the fans who were there. It was a great feeling. Do you understand that supporters and observers are surprised to see Andy Carroll in Bordeaux in the National too? Love that question. Hard-hitting journalism there, because that is the actual question everybody's wondering. And the answer just will restore your faith in humanity, honestly. You know, I just love football, and it was an opportunity to play for a big French club. Mind you, he's not just saying that because some incredibly rich asshole is paying him to say that. He's saying that because he recognizes that Bordeaux is a big club with 10,000 fans attending their match in the 4th Division, a big club with a lot of history, and he is referring to them as such as a big club with no prompting. There is no possible financial incentive for him to be referring to them as a big club. He's not paying lip service because he's there on his own accord. The level you play at doesn't matter in the end. I love playing football, and that's what I came here to do. I really hope we can achieve our goals this season. This is why I've always believed that if I was somebody like David Beckham, like Wayne Rooney, right, one of those people that was just so unbelievably talented that you could plop me in the 6th Division of England at the age of 50 and I'd be able to make a serious impact, that's what I'd be doing. Because playing this game, playing a children's game, much the same way that making YouTube videos is a child's game, it's a child's game. And you're lucky to be able to do it. And sure, sometimes you play really poorly and a bunch of people get pissed. And sure, sometimes a lot of those people cross the line. Same thing happens with YouTube videos. Sometimes I make a YouTube video that people watch and they're like, that fucking sucked, right? And sometimes they tell you that. But to be perfectly honest, you're still lucky to be there and still lucky to be able to do this or that, right? And in my opinion, as somebody that does this, I'd even rather do that. Right? But if you are that good at that game and have devoted so much of your life to playing that game, and you don't have multiple international fashion brands that need minding like David Beckham or whatever else he's doing, like owning Inter Miami, I would be doing this. And Andy Carroll has basically launched himself into semi-retirement and decided, you know what? What's a fun team I could play for, still be a god with, right? And it would mean something to a lot of people. Right? Because you hear people talk about this. Jordan Henderson talked about this when he left Saudi Arabia. It was like what he really missed was that connection to the fans and this kind of, you know, that was the reason to play, that there was just that energy, that there were fans and people that cared and that this was their club and, you know, the sand wasn't so damn hot. Or in England's case overall, there just really isn't a lot of sand. That people try to tell me there are beaches in England. You're fucking lying, man. I grew up in Florida. It's the most depressing beach I've ever seen in my entire life. Find a discounted flight on a Tuesday, right? Save up. Go to Florida for a couple days, getting all expenses paid, right, on a discount season in the winter when nobody thinks the water's warm enough, but it is. Come to Florida in January, go to the Gulf side. The water's still warmer than the warmest water you've ever felt in England. Okay, get the huge discount that you get by doing that in January and experience a real beach. Okay, that's a side note. I'm just saying. If you save up for a little bit and you're looking for your next vacation, Florida, Gulf Coast, January. I'm a Gulf Coast girl. All right. I know my shit. That's my home. Maybe you'll see a wild Zealand, breach off in the distance. You could take a picture of it, put it on your wall as some sort of historic thing. That or a bottlenose dolphin. I don't know what you're going to get first. It's kind of dead even race right now. I don't even remember what the hell I was talking about. I know it had something to do with Andy Carroll. The connection to the fans. That's what he was like, dude, let me find a club I can just be a god at that has fans where this really means something. Like a lot of them. Bordeaux. Awesome. I would do that. Awesome. That's so cool. I would totally do that. And Andy Carroll's doing it. How does a player who earns so much money in the Premier League accept a challenge like the Girondins? His salary is estimated around 3,500 euros a month, by the way. I thought it was a week. It's literally a month. That's what I told you before. It's because I love football. To be honest, it even costs me money to play for Bordeaux. Moving expenses and everything, especially with the level of lifestyle I'm sure Andy Carroll's accustomed to. But I play football, and I'm simply happy to play football. I want to be a part of the history of this club, and to be honest, it's not a question of money in my career. It's never been a question of money. Do you feel in Bordeaux the expectation of the supporters of the club in this club, which was destroyed? It's sad to see a club, no matter who they are, struggling. Earlier in my career, I was at a club that had financial issues, which was Reading. We took penalty points. It's unfortunate, but you just have to get involved to get the club back to where it needs to be. We have to fight as best we can. We have a great team, a great manager, great staff, and I hope we can get back up in the next 2 years. Did you know that Bordeaux is the city in France with the largest number of English and Irish pubs? Banger question by RMC there. He said no, he hasn't had a chance to enjoy them yet. But honestly, you're kind of a semi-pro footballer again, Andy Carroll. Go out there and enjoy the damn English and Irish pubs. You've earned it. You've also restored my faith in footballers, that some of them, in fact, can be just like us. Can one have just used the fact that they're incredibly good at this sport to do cool shit? Andy Carroll recognized he had an opportunity to mean a lot for Bordeaux and really help a fallen giant and still be great, because it's really fun to play a sport and be great at it. And he took that opportunity. That's just really damn cool. Congrats to Andy Carroll. Always have him in high regard up in the noggin here.